so I need to do a bottom third. But don't let that stop you, and we are broadcasting.
All right. Welcome, viewers, to a special YouTube-only edition of the Comics Community Podcast, where we'll be discussing all the comics-related film and television news from San Diego Comic-Con 2016. My name is Mitch, and I'll be hosting this special podcast. Joining me today are two of the Comics Crew regulars, Phil. Hello, Phil.
Hi, all.
Raphael.
Hey, guys.
All right, with those lengthy introductions out of the way, hopefully everyone knows who we are, but if not, welcome, new viewers. Let's get right to our first topic, and our first topic is going to be Marvel movie news. So, a big story coming out of Comic-Con was the tweeting of pictures and videos of props from the upcoming Thor Ragnarok movie. Now, these props look suspiciously like the gladiator armor from the acclaimed comic book miniseries Planet Hulk. So have you guys seen these pictures, and what do you think of the possibility of that storyline from Planet Hulk in the Thor Ragnarok movie?
When I first saw them, I kind of almost assumed it was like a false flag scenario because the armor looks Asgardian. It doesn't exactly look like it looked in the comics, but it does look like something that would belong in a Thor movie. So I wouldn't assume right away that it's like a, World War Hulk kind of scenario. I just kind of assumed maybe they were paying homage to that, which may be kind of like writing a bigger check than they can cash at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not exactly too sure how I feel about it. I'd be excited to see it, but I don't know if it's exactly hinting at anything at this point.
Well, you're the first person I've heard take that rational view of things, so congratulations.
I'm going to actually have to second Raphael's, too. I saw it, thought it was cool, and didn't see any hidden meaning or connotation under that.
Oh, man, what's wrong with you guys? Your conspiracy theory, like radar, has to explode on this kind of thing.
They paid you to say that, didn't they?
Yeah, maybe they did. Maybe they should.
I can't see anything that's going to be in this movie that would really. I mean, it has to be a Hulk film. Like, they don't have enough time and they don't have enough I guess source material to really do any Planet Hulk stuff at this point. So I'd be interested and I'd be on board for it if they were doing something like that, but I don't think we've seen enough to really confirm that at this point.
Because the theory goes that they don't want to do another Hulk movie because they'd have to share it with Universal, who owns half the rights to Hulk movies. So this is the only way they could fit in that Planet Hulk movie and not have to split it with Universal. So that's the conspiracy theory. Just throwing it out there.
So is the idea that we're going to go see a Thor movie and then when we're going to get there it's going to turn out to be a Hulk movie? Or
I think that's pretty much what it is, because my theory goes all over the place, because I've seen the animated movie Hulk versus Thor, where Hulk goes to Asgard. And then if I just make the leap of logic where you take half that plot out and just insert the Planet Hulk plot, and then you take my fan fiction based on Thor issue 238 and insert that, you've got the movie I've always wanted to see.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time they've done that, in a way. I mean, Captain America, was that really a Captain America movie? That was more of an Avengers movie, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's true.
If they want to disguise an Avengers movie as number 3 in the Captain America franchise, okay. But
disguising a Thor as a Hulk movie is a little bit different.
Well, I agree, yes.
I'd be impressed if they could pull that off, if they could bill it as an actual Thor movie and then have it really center around the Hulk and have him just there. I think that would be hilarious. I just can't see them actually. I understand that they're having a lot of problems with ownership of the characters, and I actually didn't know that they were having that problem with Hulk, but I guess that makes so much more sense now that they really have to shoehorn him into something. But then you really get into the conflict of can you do these characters justice and these big storylines justice? And that's what I'd worry about if they were really trying to just kind of smash the two together.
Yeah, I guess that has been a problem for Marvel. Even this latest Captain America movie, people said, too many characters, too much stuff going on. And the same way with Age of Ultron. So either they're doubling down on that, or maybe you guys are thinking this is just a red herring. So let's move on to our next trailer, which has a lot of strange stuff going on. Oh, well, okay, pun intended. the new Doctor Strange trailer was shown at Comic-Con. It features more characters, more reality-bending special effects. Have you guys seen this trailer? Does this second trailer get you more excited for the movie? Does it shed any light on what the story is actually going to be? Do you have any understanding of what's even going on with Doctor Strange?
It reminded me first and foremost of Inception.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. Only I was more confused.
Didn't even have a blah soundtrack in it. Blah.
That's the only thing that could have.
Having said that, get that out of the way. I'm really looking forward to the movie just based on Cumberbatch and the fact that I don't know much at all about Strange. So this movie, like a lot of the Marvel movies, actually are going to be, and the comic fan in me kind of cringes when I say this, but they're actually going to be my real introduction to the character, and not the books. So I wondered too if some of that's kind of some trippy stuff going on there, and I wondered how much of that was a nod to Ditko, because Ditko's work back in the original run of that series was, given the day and age in which those books were coming out, were a little controversial too, weren't they? Drug-laden effects and.
Yeah, it was definitely different than a lot of stuff going on then, for sure.
I was excited to see it. I was excited to see Tilda Swinton in the role she plays. She's his mentor, right?
Yep, she plays the Ancient One.
Okay.
I still think that's a little weird, but I understand that you pick her for the whole like ethereal kind of role. It's she's really good at kind of portraying that. It's a weird choice, and it's kind of weird seeing her there. Like it all seems a little out of place, but I'm sure it's gonna be fine when I actually see the movie. But from the trailer, once again, it looks a lot like Inception. It looks like a little too much to take in at once from a trailer, but some of the small things that they do stylistically I thought were really cool. When you see him throwing on his cape, he basically just tosses it over his shoulder, and it kind of lashes onto him kind of by itself. It's those little things that are really mystical and really kind of give you a good idea of the character. So I'm excited to see a little bit more of that, but at this point I really have no idea what's going on in any of those trailers.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see them weave in the magic part, which they haven't really addressed much in the Marvel Universe. And anything they can do, in my opinion, to make an origin movie more interesting, I think, is good. So,
I forget
the weirder the better. What is the release for that Doctor Strange movie?
Need to queue it by IMDb. The reason I ask is because didn't they just now, and didn't they just now start releasing a miniseries that was supposed to be a direct tie into the film, or lead up to?
Are you referring to The Last Days of Magic, or?
That might be it. I know there's a Doctor Strange miniseries. It just.
Well, you had his last comic that came out with the all new, all different line, which I think did pretty well for a while. I picked up the first 2 or 3 issues and just stopped reading. And I think that was supposed to spark some new interest in the character, and I think it actually worked because, he had a few crossovers with Iron Man and stuff like that, so they are really trying to give him a little bit more of a presence in the universe, because he was always that guy that you just went to when you needed help fighting something like magic or whatever, because he's the chief authority of it. But now you have other characters kind of going to him for help with other stuff, and he's popping up in their books, so I think they are trying to bring him into the light a little bit more, but he's always kind of been a backstage character anyway.
Yeah, Phil, I think you're right about there is an actual official tie-in comic to the movie. They've been doing that a lot with their recent movies.
Yeah,
they did one for the Civil War.
Kind of like a lead up. And then depending on, I don't know, sometimes they try to really make it just makes me wonder, all of a sudden we can see Doctor Strange stories all over the place come this November 4th, which is when the premiere is. So they've still got some time. But
I'm sure they will. I'm sure they'll tie those in. Although they never tie the comic books back to the movies. They always just use the comic book sort of as promo for the movies, which I'm a little disappointed about, but oh well.
One thing, and I'm just now, as I look at the IMDb page, reminded of, and I only found this out during Comic-Con, which is when she took the stage, but I didn't realize until just then that Rachel McAdams was playing the female interest, and I don't know what character that is.
Yeah, the trailer, she's the woman sitting by his bedside. I think she's his either ex-wife or just an ex-love interest that continued to work with him after they broke up. So she's going to be more his human side of things rather than the mystical side of things.
Okay.
All right. Next, speaking of mystical, magical places, we go to the wonderful world of Wakanda for Black Panther, and the director of that movie, Ryan Coogler, revealed that Michael B. Jordan of Fantastic Four fame, as well as Lupita Nyong'o, who was in the recent Star Wars movie, and Denai Guerrera, who's in The Walking Dead, will all be joining the cast of Black Panther. He also announced what roles each of these actors would be playing. Jordan will be Eric Killmonger, an arch-enemy of Black Panther who's worked to destabilize Wakanda, sort of a rebel insurgent type character who's been, a nemesis of the whole regime for a long time. Nyong'o will play Nakia, a member of the Dora Milaje, who are the all-female honor guard to the Wakandan kings. And Denai Guerrera, she plays Michonne on The Walking Dead, so she's well versed with using swords and things like that. She'll be playing the character of Okoye, described as the leader of the Dora Milaje. So what do you guys think of this casting news for Black Panther?
I have no problems with it. And again, and this might be a running theme for me, the high point for me, speaking of Captain America Civil War, was Black Panther. One of the high points. That was a character I know very little of, and again, that movie was my introduction to him, and I thought they did wonderfully, and I really like the lead. As far as the cast, who they have to play, not being familiar with the characters, I couldn't say whether they're appropriate or not. A good actor always can, like, I'm going to forget that's Lupita, 10 minutes into her role, right?
Mm-hmm.
And don't forget, too, Andy Serkis has been attached to the film. They don't know in what role yet, but I'm seeing here on IMDb that he's rumored to be playing Claw.
Well, that's the character he played in Captain America Civil War, the arms dealer. That was Andy Serkis.
That's right.
Yeah, actually, I'm glad someone brought that up because I kind of assumed that was a throwaway character, but it's cool to see him actually coming back for the Black Panther movie. That was a nice little tease that they did back in, I think that was Age of Ultron.
Yeah, it was Age of Ultron, that's right.
And I was listening to something recently. I think it was on NPR or something. But someone was talking about how when they revealed the cast and they had I think a panel at Comic-Con or whatever. Everybody was really impressed with the fact that they went with all African American actors, and they're talking about how good it is to see that actually represented in Marvel. So I think the casting is spot on at this point. I'm really excited to see a little bit more of Wakandan characters and politics come to life, because I think that was kind of an interesting thing that they teased during Civil War. I think you see one of his female honor guards, and she almost decides just to kill Black Widow, and I was like, just let them fight. That would be really cool. I want to see that.
Yeah, that was a pretty good scene in Civil War where she's like, move aside, and Black Widow's not moving aside, so that would have been an interesting fight for sure. But yeah, if they had sort of attempted to whitewash any character in Black Panther movie, I can't imagine the backlash that would have been. I mean, it would have been the worst casting decision in the history of movies, I think.
The movie would have been sunk before it came out.
All right, so I think we're all on board with Black Panther movie. Did any of you read the new comic series, Black Panther #1 issue or anything like that?
I picked up the first 2 issues actually, and I want to. I just figured I'd wait to pick up the first trade paperback, but I was, I guess, impressed by the story. I mean, it seems interesting so far. I think I miss out a lot by not reading any of the old Black Panther, and I'm a little bit behind with the events that happened with the Phoenix Five and whatnot, because unlike Randy, I don't really read X-Men. So there's a little bit of backdrop that I'm missing. But other than that, it's still a pretty fun read. The artwork is there, the writing is pretty solid. Black Panther kind of is going through a lot more of a human struggle, and it's kind of interesting seeing that. So I'd still recommend it. I just don't know if I'd recommend buying it in individual issues because it's a little slow. So maybe trade paperbacks are the way to go with that.
Yeah, it seems like Black Panther is more he's a king, right? So he's got all these political things to deal with. So maybe it's better in a trade where you can read the whole story at once and get the big picture.
it reads more like a book or like a novel than I would say it does like a comic book, and that's impressive. Like, that's really cool that it's able to do that, but at the same time, it doesn't translate well to individual issues, because by the time I'm done with one, I'm just like, well, I have no closure at all at the end of this, like I have to wait till, like next month or something. So definitely trade paperbacks, I think, is the way to go.
All right, sounds good. Let's close the book then on Black Panther. Move on to Marvel's next big announcement. They have officially announced Brie Larson will play Captain Marvel in a solo movie that's scheduled for March 2019. Now, Larson is best known for winning the Oscar for Best Actress in 2015 for her starring role in the movie Room. But comic book fans may remember her as Envy Adams in the movie Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. She's a very multi-dimensional actress. She's, like I said, an Academy Award winner. But honestly, I haven't heard a lot of hype out of this. It seems like this announcement kind of got buried a little bit. So what are your guys' thoughts on Brie Larson and having a solo Captain Marvel movie?
I didn't get the impression that she unseated any other fan favorites. I'm aware of other actresses that had been kind of rumored to maybe be considered or up for it. In fact, some of those I think might have visually maybe looked the part more. But in a sense, I'm sitting here looking at Brie Larson's IMDb page, and it's pretty long. Although most of them I'm unfamiliar with, and she's new to me. I thought she was a relative unknown when she won the Academy Award last year, so I'm obviously wrong on that account. I guess unless I kind of trust him to pick who's best for the role, I guess, and so and there was nothing about her that reached out and sent red flags, so I was happy to see it. I remember Alec going, "That's Brie Larson. That's the same person who was in Room."
Yeah, that's her.
So visually, she looks like she can pass off any number of roles.
Do you remember her from Scott Pilgrim?
I don't. Was she an ex-girlfriend?
She was the rock star girlfriend. So she got up on stage, did that whole musical number. I thought she was pretty good in that role. Like I said, she's multidimensional, so she could sing, she can do all that stuff.
Want to go back?
I wouldn't have related her back to that movie unless you had said something, Mitch. Like I googled that afterwards, and I was just like, "Wow, that is actually her." So, I think it's like a kind of a safe pick. I think everyone had like their own contender that they wanted to see in like a Captain Marvel role, but I'm pretty happy with it. I don't think they made the wrong choice.
Yeah, it just seems like none of us are too excited, and nobody got real excited over this announcement. Maybe because it's been rumored for so long that it's going to be her, that people just sort of lost their enthusiasm. I don't know.
I'm really excited for the film, but I just rather would see it get made. So my excitement really came more from the fact that, hey, look, there's some forward momentum. They could have put anybody in there in a way, and I would really be more happy that just it had been filled, and now we can get closer to it.
So you're more excited for the character, and it doesn't really matter then.
Oh yeah, I wonder too. Now I'm wondering, since she is an Avenger, it makes me wonder we have no idea. I don't think about the synopsis of the film, but how are they going to address her being an Avenger? Has she been an Avenger that we've just not seen, or will she join them in her film? Will she make cameo appearances in other Avenger-related films before her film comes out? Which makes me now wonder what those films would be. I don't know what's on the slate, but.
Well, there were rumors that she was supposed to be in the post-credits of Captain America. No, it was the post-credits of Age of Ultron.
I feel like that was a podcast rumor. And we just started.
Well, they said they were like she was going to be like a pilot in the background or something. But anyway,
it also occurs to me that one of her very first appearances as Captain Marvel was with Spider-Man, Miles Morales. So it wouldn't be unfitting for her to make a cameo in the new Spider-Man film.
Yeah, and it's interesting because they're doing on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the television show, they're doing a lot of strange things with, Kree DNA and things like that. And there have been some rumors that some of the devices that they've been looking for on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. have been related to Captain Marvel's origin stories.
And I should make a correction. That wasn't Miles Morales. That was Peter Parker she appeared with.
So anyway, let's move out of the realm of rumors and get to something that's been revealed. One of the weirdest revelations from Comic-Con was Marvel coming out and revealing that Kurt Russell, who we've known is going to be in Guardians of the Galaxy 2 for a while, and we've known he's going to be playing Star-Lord's father for a while. But we didn't know is that the character he's going to be playing is that of Ego the Living Planet. And that Ego the Living Planet is going to be Star-Lord's father, which is a huge departure from the comics, where Star-Lord's father is known as an alien named Jason, the King of Spartax. So this revelation brings to light many questions. What questions do you have about this announcement?
My biggest question is what Raphael thinks, because I'm not at all familiar with any of these characters.
I just want to know the mechanics of like how a planet and a person, like, you know, there's some very obvious questions there.
Well, apparently in footage that was shown in Hall H that hasn't been released yet, Drax actually asks this question of Ego the Living Planet.
Oh, wow. That's neat.
So I guess we're going to get an answer, and it's probably going to be a rude answer, knowing the first movie had some kind of rude humor in it. So
Well, it's good to know I'm not the only one, and if this movie answers that question, I will pay to go see it.
all right.
What's the largest cosmic scale thing we've seen in a Marvel film?
Is that like a
Like we haven't seen Galactus.
Is that
Well, we saw the Celestials in
that-
Guardians of the Galaxy,
Okay.
so they're Galactus size and they're Galactus
Okay.
class entities, I guess you could say.
that sounds about. I think Celestials is as far as you get in the cosmic pantheon, as far as we've gone.
Yeah. Haven't get into what are some of the other ones out there? There's the guy that's just like the head floating in space, Infinity.
Like
all
Master
those-
Order and Lord Chaos or something like that. Or,
Yeah, all those, the Living Tribunal, all that kind of stuff.
I
You
feel
know-
like that's how they're gonna have to end the Infinity Wars movie. Is you just pull like a random cosmic entity out, and then they just fix the problem.
Yeah, probably. Oh, and that brings up a side note. Post Comic-Con news, Marvel has altered the name of Avengers Infinity War. It's no longer Part 1 and Part 2. It's now Avengers Infinity War and To Be Determined. Marvel movie.
Oh.
So it's no longer Part 1 and 2. It looks like they're going to cram all that into one movie and then something else after that.
Reminds me again. Speaking of Avengers, Captain Marvel's always had a cosmic aspect to her. So in a way, this is good timing for that character to be revealed if they're going to start going this route.
Yeah, that might be where they introduce her, honestly, is somehow tie it into the Guardians of the Galaxy, because it really doesn't make a lot of sense coming from what we know of the current Marvel universe, at least in the films. Because I doubt they're going to tie her into the television. They haven't really done much of that. So we'll see what they do with that. So, but that is a good segment, or a good segue to our next topic, and that is Marvel television news. So we'll start with Marvel Netflix. They released a new full-length trailer for the Luke Cage coming out of Comic-Con. The trailer features Luke Cage smashing his way through a gang of men in a Daredevil-like hallway fight scene.
That was just fun to watch. That was a
Yeah.
blast.
It's pretty fun, like, to see that spin, because Daredevil has to really struggle, and Luke Cage does not, because he's Power Man, right? But aside from all that fun action, it also featured a verbal confrontation between Luke Cage and a gangster known as Cornell Cottonmouth Stokes, where Cage seemed to be stepping up and taking on the mantle of the hero of Harlem. So Luke Cage stars Mike Coulter. It's set to air September 30th. What do you guys think of the trailer? What do you guys think of Luke Cage taking on this new identity as, hero of Harlem? All that entails. There's a lot of, cultural significance to Harlem. So what are you guys' general thoughts on Luke Cage?
Love the trailer. Was glad to see. Well, was glad when the original whole Netflix deal was announced that that was going to be one of the shows. I mean, obviously, all of those characters are related in the comics, and so it's nice to see what the past has been related, and maybe thought of as B-level characters come into the spotlight in kind of an interesting way. I think they're still B-level characters, but now people love them more.
Mhm.
Uh, it's nice to see him out on his own. I think I read somewhere, though now I'm questioning myself, that this series will actually predate his appearance in Jessica Jones. Although having seen the trailer, it makes me wonder how he could be doing some of those things and not be known by the time Jessica Jones rolls around. Um, did you hear something similar?
No, I haven't heard that at all.
Okay. Um, and it makes me look forward to the dynamic between him and Danny Rand that we have coming. Makes me wonder if Danny Rand will make a first appearance in Luke Cage.
They both seem to really enjoy punching through walls, so that's apparently a thing. But from what I've seen in the trailer, I really like the fact that they're not like, I guess, shying away from. I don't want to say making the character a little bit different, but I mean, my association with Luke Cage has always been like a little bit. I want to say like, he's like, wears very vibrant colors, and he says stuff like "Sweet Christmas," like it's not completely serious. It's very comic booky and very Marvel, but it seems like, especially what they're doing with the Netflix series, is they're not afraid to make it a little bit more realistic and a little bit more dark, and I think that does really well for, I guess, like a compelling TV show. So I love the direction that they're taking it so far, and it just looks like it's going to be a fun show to watch.
And I think it's true to what Hell's Kitchen is.
Yeah, I think you're both definitely right about that. The director has come out and said, he's definitely not going to shy away from it. I think one of his quotes was, at this point in what's going on in America, we kind of need a black bulletproof superhero. Not to make light of the situation, but it's something that I think can speak to a different audience than a lot of Marvel movies. And he even talked about the music that's going to be involved and the different influences. He called it the Wu-Tangification of the Marvel universe. So I think it'll just be interesting to see those new and different voices. And I'm excited for Misty Knight. They announced that she's going to be in there. She's going to be a detective, like an undercover detective. I don't know where that's going to fit in the plot. I also like Cottonmouth coming in, using his original origin of that of like a street level hood, and I wonder if he's going to evolve kind of like the Kingpin, where the Kingpin started out as just this weird business guy who evolves into the Kingpin we know, and I wonder if this Cottonmouth is going to evolve into sort of the Serpent Society type of supervillain. I think that'll be interesting. So a lot of good stuff going on there with Luke Cage. And Phil, you mentioned Danny Rand. So next up we'll look at the teaser for Iron Fist. It introduced Finn Jones of Game of Thrones stardom as martial arts master Danny Rand. The teaser opens with a young Danny Rand surviving a plane crash and being rescued by two robed monks. The footage then shifts to modern-day Manhattan, shows a now adult Danny walking barefoot and disheveled through the streets before being restrained in a hospital bed. And the whole montage ends, as Raphael alluded to, with him busting down a concrete wall, presumably with one punch from his iron fists. So what do you guys think of the teaser? What are your thoughts on bringing the Iron Fist to Marvel Netflix? Who wants to go first?
This is a character I know little about. I've got Matt Fractions a couple years ago, well, more than that, back in 2009, did the Immortal Iron Fist, and that got good reviews. I've had that in my unread stack for a long time, though, and that's as close as I've come to that character. I think, given the trailer, though, I thought it was interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing how that character fits into the Netflix Marvel Universe. But as we know, obviously, he's already established with Power Man. But this is going to be one of those examples where I'm looking forward to, my knowledge of this character, I guess coming from television. As we talk about these, I guess there are some, there's obviously some characters that I prefer. I'm going to keep these in the books. I want to read them. I'm going to read their stories. But there's just so many books out there, you can't read them all. So some characters I've just relegated to say, you know what, all I'm going to know about this guy is whatever's on this TV show, be it S.H.I.E.L.D. or a Netflix show or whatever. And he's one of those for now.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Raphael?
I swore my loyalty to House Tyrell, so I have to like the show.
Okay.
But from the trailer, like, you don't exactly get too much. Like, it's definitely not as I want to say telling as like the Luke Cage trailer and everything like that, but still interesting. I guess I don't know too much about his origin story to really, I guess, get interested in the fact that he's like restrained and like put in, I guess, like a psychiatric ward maybe. Like I never knew that was actually ever part of the character of the books. Like I'm aware of like the the plane crash and he gets taken in by like the monks and stuff like that, but other than that, he's just kind of a blank slate for me. So I think it'll be interesting to have a little bit of that filled in, but until then, I guess I can only just wait for more information.
Well, it is just a teaser, so you're right. It didn't really give much information. Real simple backstory looks like. They might even do it like Batman Begins style, where it's just quick run through of who this Batman guy is or who this Iron Fist guy is. But in recent incarnations, he has been kind of a damaged character, so it'll be interesting to see them bring that to the Marvel Netflix. That's a good place for damaged characters, I think, is Netflix. And one of the things that I'm interested in is there was a recent Iron Fist series. I think it was, I can't remember what the exact title of it was, but it was a couple years ago, that dealt more with this kind of thing, in downtown Manhattan, weird stuff, ninjas, all that kind of stuff that we saw from Daredevil Season 3. The Hand, all that kind of stuff easily ties in, I think. But the other concept that I'd like to see them talk about is this concept that they called Iron Fist the blade that cuts both ways, because he's not only a weapon to go after his enemies, but a lot of times he works as a weapon against himself and against his friends and those around him, which is one of the reasons why he likes to team up with Power Man, because whatever trouble he gets into, Power Man's a guy he can't hurt, first of all. Like if he's hanging out with normal people, he can hurt them, but he can't really hurt Power Man, and Power Man can get out of his own jams. So it'll be interesting to see if they have Iron Fist as a sort of agent of chaos that he sometimes is in the comic books.
I just realized, did we already talk about Jessica Henwick being cast in that as well?
No. Who's she going to play?
Well, I'm on her IMDb page. She's cast in this, and she too comes from Game of Thrones. She is playing... too far. She plays Colleen Wing.
Okay. She's one of his sort of best friends, and another person who gets damaged by the whole Iron Fist experience. So that's an interesting character for sure.
Okay. And she played in Game of Thrones. She was Nymeria Sand, whoever that is. I'm wondering if it's one of Elise's. I'm not getting that name right. Maiden's assistants.
Yeah, she was one of the Sand Snakes.
Okay.
Really cool characters, but we'll save that for the Game of Thrones podcast.
Yeah. Just gotta hope Natalie Dormer shows up in this.
That would be terrific. I actually wanted her to be cast as Captain Marvel, but once again, everyone had their contenders.
Trivia question: what Marvel movie was Natalie Dormer in already?
Ooh.
Do you know?
I'm gonna say Silver Surfer.
No, she was in Captain America: The First Avenger.
Oh, no kidding.
She was the girl who kissed Steve Rogers in front of Agent Carter and made Agent Carter jealous.
That's funny. That was a nice scene.
Lucky man, Steve. Lucky man.
Lucky man. Alright, so speaking of team-ups, we'll go with the second teaser trailer from Netflix, which was the Defenders teaser. Now this was a very short teaser. It featured mostly clips from Daredevil Season 2 and Jessica Jones Season 1, interspersed with this sort of strange collage that eventually formed the Defenders logo. And the only real one new element of the teaser was a voice that sounded a lot like Daredevil's mentor Stick, saying, "The four of you think you can save the city, you can barely save yourselves." So, what are your thoughts on this short teaser and the thoughts of the Defenders coming to Marvel Netflix as sort of like a street-level Avengers?
Yeah, that was Scott Glenn. I didn't miss that. I don't know, really not much to go on. I just think it makes sense, which is kind of the reason I've kind of bought into this Netflix thing from the beginning, is with the Defenders thing out there, kind of like a carrot on the stick. You know that they have some long-range plans, and I like that they're going to introduce us all of these characters beforehand, so that it'll be more interesting to see them, how they all interact once they're all gathered together. I'm looking forward to it. Does that trailer make me look more forward to it? No. Did it turn me off? No. It's just a teaser, just like, hey, we're not forgetting about this, so that's a good thing.
I thought that it was, I guess I want to say, interesting that they kind of put it together from old clips. Like, there's no new information, stuff like that. It's kind of like Phil said, it's really just there, to act as a teaser and get you excited about the fact that they haven't forgotten about it and that it's going to be a thing. But at the same time, I understand that, like, by making it and showing it, like, they're really committing to it, which is also nice to see. I was under the impression that the Punisher was in the Defenders, which obviously means I don't really read Defenders, but I'm a little disappointed about that. But yeah, I'll still check it out. It's going to be cool to see all those characters interact, and it's like with the Avengers films where you have like the payoff that if you watch all the other shows, it's like a much more like enriched experience. So I'll still be interested to check it out. I think it'll be fun. Street level Avengers. I think you can't really go wrong with that.
Yeah, it definitely sounds good. The teaser did show a quick Punisher little snippet. It showed Elektra a little bit, so I think they'll be there. But I don't know. They definitely won't be Defenders. They'll just be wild cards, I think. But I'm excited because it gives that sort of Heroes for Hire vibe. I was a big fan of that when Power Man and Iron Fist would hook up with Misty Knight and some other superheroes and do their little Hero for Hire action. So it'll be interesting how they weave elements of that in. We've got Hellcat hanging around somewhere in the Jessica Jones universe.
That's right.
We
And
don't
Jessica
know.
Jones just made an appearance in Hellcat too, by the way. Those two issues.
So it'll be interesting how they, like you guys said, tie all those loose ends together and see what they're building up to.
And it's not on our agenda today, so obviously there wasn't anything really related to it. But in a sense, I think it's telling, too, how there was no Punisher news at Comic-Con, which would, to me, suggest how far off it still really is. They've got all these other properties they've got to get out first.
Yeah, there was just a brief appearance by John Barenthal saying, "Thanks, everybody, I'm the Punisher, see you later," was basically. But not, like you said, no news. So the very last bit of Netflix news is Marvel executive Joe Quesada announcing that Season 3 of Daredevil has been greenlit, most likely for the spring of 2018. I don't think there's much to say here except that, this is, I think, expected by everyone, don't you think?
Yeah, I think also that was kind of grouped in with a few others, too. We weren't going to see any Jessica Jones either until at least 2018 as well.
Yeah, the date hurts me, but I will wait patiently, and I'll just put myself in cryostasis again or something. So
Okay. Just wake you up for the Defenders and then put you back to sleep. All right, so let's switch gears to traditional television away from Netflix. ABC's Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. announced that Ghost Rider will be featured in this upcoming season, and then it will be the Robbie Reyes version of the character who was introduced in the all-new Ghost Rider comic book series from 2014. So your thoughts on Robbie Reyes as Ghost Rider and bringing such a crazy character to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Go.
Well, given Raphael's excitement over there in that other camera, I only have one thing to say, really, is that I just hope they do it right, effects-wise.
Yeah.
That's all. That'd be a character that they could, if they're not careful, they could make look hokey, and it would just throw that out the window. So.
Yeah, especially on a TV budget.
Yeah, I know. That's my only concern. Maybe they'll just show a lot of him when he's not Ghost Rider,
I don't know if any of the listeners or if you guys would know this, but I'm kind of a big fan of all new Ghost Rider. I kind of read a whole bunch of stuff, and I got all the comics, but I'm incredibly excited, not just because it's a comic that I read and really enjoyed, but because we actually get like a Latino superhero in the Marvel Universe, which up to this point I don't think we really had too much exposure with. That and after Secret Wars, we lost all new Ghost Rider, kind of in like the big shift of stuff, and the sense that he hasn't been presented in anything. So it's just cool to know that they haven't forgotten about that character. And even if he's just there for like an instant, even if they're just kind of like teasing him, I'm not expecting like a solo show or anything. I'm just really happy that maybe he'll get a chance to come back in the comic books. There was actually a video post from a Comic-Con where they revealed his muscle car, and it's like a older Dodge Charger, and it just looks so cool, and everything about it I think is going to be great. They're talking about casting the character, but I don't think they've really confirmed anyone just yet, but I'm incredibly excited for this.
Yeah, I saw that footage of the car, and you're right, it does look pretty awesome. It's just like the comic book where it's got the big turbocharger on top. It's the black, like 70s Dodge Charger. It's pretty sweet.
And it's really great that they went with a new character instead of like, Johnny Blaze or Danny Ketch, because both the movies and the comic books have ruined those characters. I love those characters, and I've read all of them, and I still think that they've completely just ruined Ghost Rider. So you really do have to start from scratch at this point.
Yeah, I haven't heard much grumbling about that, after Nick Cage took a shot at the character, like where else can it go, honestly. So, yeah, bring something fresh, bring something new. The casting news, I saw that, you're right, they haven't cast anyone in particular, but they've got 2 casting calls out for a Hispanic lead actor and a Hispanic person to play his brother, who's supposedly going to be in a wheelchair. So is that true to the comics?
Yeah, in the comics, Robbie is a high school student who is a orphan, and as a result, he takes care of his severely disabled brother who is in a wheelchair. And the very first thing you see is like basically his brother gets ambushed by a gang, and they steal the wheelchair and throw him in a puddle. So they really don't shy away from it and everything. And a big motivation for him in the books is just protecting his brother, because they live in kind of what is essentially like the barrio in like Los Angeles. So things are really rough for them, and becoming the Ghost Rider kind of gives him a chance to change his life and change his community, which is really cool to see for just a young character. It's kind of like the whole Peter Parker change that he makes, where he realizes that he has all this responsibility. So it's a very compelling character, which I think will do really well on TV, just depending how much they, I guess, kind of showcase him.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to fit that kind of story into Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which is a much more broad, save the world kind of show. Maybe they'll do like they did with Deathlock. I don't know if you're familiar with what they did with Deathlock. They sort of teased him at the end of a season and then spent the next first half of the season sort of dealing with Deathlock. So that might be a good way to do it.
I'm pretty sure he's made cameos since then, and like now he's like an actual like runner on the show, correct?
Yeah, he's been around. He's been in a few episodes. Yeah, they bring him back, a couple times a season.
And the good thing about using Robbie Reyes is halfway through the comics, he actually meets up with Johnny Blaze, and Johnny Blaze like becomes his mentor. So you have tons of room to still integrate all those characters if you want. So if people ever do, kind of get sour with this whole new character that they're bringing in, if they're like, oh, that's not the real Ghost Rider, you can still bring in all those other characters.
Sounds good. Sounds like something to definitely look forward to. I think it spices up Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. They did it last season with the whole Hydra stuff. I think that, remember the teaser where they like had the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. logo and then they changed it into the Hydra logo. And I think this is the kind of the same thing. They did the same kind of teaser where they had the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. logo and then they brought out the flaming skull and the chains and stuff. So
yeah, that actually concerned me just slightly, because that whole flaming skull thing, I guess I shouldn't like complain too much because it's just a teaser, but I saw it and I was like, I really hope that's not, because you said it's like a TV budget. I'm like, I really hope it looks better than that on the show. I also hope it doesn't look completely like that, because part of what made everyone love the new Ghost Rider character was that he didn't look like the old Ghost Riders. Was that like he had his own look and his own kind of aesthetic to him, and I'm really hoping that they don't abandon that just for like the familiarity of the character to try to get more people to watch it. So we'll have to see what happens. I mean, they don't even have the guy cast yet, so there's still tons of possibilities, and I'm just excited for that.
Yeah, hopefully they can work on those visual effects in the next year. That'd be good. So let's go on to our final bit of Marvel television news from Comic-Con, and that was a trailer for FX's mutant-centric TV drama Legion, based on a somewhat obscure character from the X-Men comic books of the same name. Legion focuses on a character named David Haller, an incredibly powerful mutant who doesn't realize that the things he sees, hears, and does are actually real. David believes that he's going insane, and in the trailer he's seeking help from a mysterious organization that seems to know more about David's condition than they're admitting. So this scene, I don't know if you've seen the trailer, but it's very strange. There's a lot of, to go back to that Inception thing, a lot of what's real, what's not real, who's on this side, who's on that side. But the interesting thing about the trailer is they do use the M word, mutant. You hear someone say, this guy could be the most powerful mutant we've ever seen. So what are your feelings on this trailer? Are you happy to see some mutant representation on television after they've been sort of inhuman washed in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? What are your thoughts on Legion?
I had never heard of the character, saw the trailer, instantly want to watch it. It looked really exciting and right up my alley. I'm here on the IMDb page, though, and I'm disappointed to see that they're billing it as simply a 2017 TV movie. I was, maybe if the ratings are good, it'll turn into a series. Who knows? But I am interested also to see, and I don't remember seeing her in the trailer itself, Aubrey Plaza is also in it. They have a whole list of, it looks like it's fully cast. She's the one that stands out to me the most. Anyway, I'm all in. Know nothing about it. Trailer made me want to experience more.
Okay, Raphael?
This would be a good time to have Randy on the podcast because if you're familiar, he reads X-Men, and my understanding of the character is very limited because I've only seen him in certain aspects, but Legion, if I remember correctly, is the son of Charles Xavier, and he's also the catalyst for a lot of the events of, like, I can't remember what event it was, but he basically goes into the future and screws everything up, or he goes into the past and screws everything up. From my understanding, he's like an Omega-level mutant, and his power is basically he has all the powers he wants, but each power manifests in, like, a different personality. So he's not always himself. Like, he has other personalities with other power sets, and those kind of, like, grow in time and whatnot. So he's a very complex and confusing character. But oddly enough, I think he's one of the characters that I've heard people really ask for a TV show about, which, I never thought would actually happen, so I'm incredibly surprised and pleased to hear that they're making a TV show. I don't know what to make from the trailers. I like the dance number, so if there's more of that, I'll be right on board. But other than that, I guess I'm just kind of hanging in here and, waiting to see where it kind of goes in terms of development.
Yeah, I'm with you guys on this one. I don't know much about the character. This is definitely a Randy expertise. We need an X-Men person on this podcast. But yeah, the trailer looks interesting. It looks much more psychological than any comic book show we've seen before. So it'll just be interesting to see something new. Be interesting to see something from Fox. They've been trying to expand the whole X-Men side of things with Deadpool. And they've been trying to get some other movies going. The Wolverine movies haven't been that great. The X-Men movies have been up and down. So maybe if they bring some of this to television, it can help them out.
Hey, this is interesting. I'm just reading on, assuming it's the same character, I'm reading on Comic Vine that David Charles Haller is the son of Charles Xavier, who later became the founder of the and Gabriel Haller, who later became the Israel ambassador to Great Britain. Yeah.
So,
son of Charles Xavier.
Son of Charles Xavier. So that's an interesting factoid, but we don't know. I don't believe they're going to tie this into their movie franchises at all.
There's potential for it, though, because he's not a huge fan of his dad. So there's some stuff that goes down, and if you look up the character, if you look up, like, any artwork of him, like, the character has, like, this really bizarre kind of, like, hair that goes straight up. Like
Yes.
it's really interesting, and I'm disappointed that they didn't put that in the show. I think that would have been real cool.
Maybe that'll be one of his personalities. Will have that crazy hair.
I'd love to see something kind of tongue in cheek like that. I think that would be great to kind of pay homage to like the old character back when the artwork was like so crazy and over the top.
Well, with a character with multiple personalities, they could go, what's that show, Orphan Black, on it, where she's got all her clones, and all her clones have different personalities.
Yeah.
Could be the same kind of thing. All right, so I think that wraps up Marvel. So let's slide over to DC movie news. All right, so we're going to start this segment off with, again, more trailers. The Comic-Con was rife with trailers this year. A new trailer dropped for Wonder Woman, directed by Patty Jenkins and starring Gal Gadot, who is reprising her role from Batman v Superman. She's going to star in her own solo film. The trailer's kind of light on plot, but it's heavy on action, most of which features Gal Gadot fighting alongside Chris Pine in his role as the classic Wonder Woman beau Steve Trevor. What few bits of dialogue we do get are focused on the relationship between these two characters and the backstory of how they met and things like that. Their differences in their worlds. She's from this weird mystical world. He's from World War I era. Britain, I believe at least that's where he's stationed anyway. So anyway, Wonder Woman is set for the release summer of 2017. It looks like they've got quite a bit filmed already. What do you think of the trailer, and what do you think of this adaptation of the character?
Loved Wonder Woman and Batman vs Superman. It was one of the high points, and even, I mean, not just the hero, but even her alias escapes me, Diana. And it took me back instantly watching the trailer as soon as she has a theme song, which they released in Batman vs Superman, and it wasn't until I was hearing it again here in this trailer that I realized that, wow, that's the music from that movie. So that was exciting, and also kind of reminds me of some Jessica Jones music too. Anyway, visually exciting. The World War I battlefield with Diana just kicking butt all throughout the battlefield was exciting. I like. There's a clip, and I don't know the actor's name. He looks like a World War I general of some sort on the opposite side, but I think he's going to be the main. He could be the main villain, and if so, I really like that actor as a bad guy. So, an important bad guy, I think, is good for any movie, or a well plotted adversary. I don't know. I'm just really looking forward to everything about this. There was nothing about that visually that wasn't interesting to me. I like, is it Chris Pine as the male lead? I was excited to hear he was cast that. We're used to seeing him, or I'm used to seeing him in the kind of the macho Kirk role. So it's going to be nice to see him as the male interest to our heroine. Kind of like the guy who plays Thor was the secretary of Ghostbusters, right?
Yeah, that was.
Which I haven't seen, but I'm interested to watch that cast. Anyway, that's anything but thumbs up for me.
Okay, Raphael.
Wonder Woman isn't a character that I know tons about. I primarily read Marvel, so all these DC kind of trailers kind of strike me as, in a way, they're for my target demographic, for people who don't really read the comics but want to go in and see these characters. So I guess my interpretation is a little bit more broad. I thought the action looked great, like Phil said. I had no idea that Wonder Woman fought in World War I. That was never something that I ever knew. I assumed World War II because they did all those comics and stuff back then, but I had no idea that she was around then and stuff. So I guess a really interesting part of the character that I get to learn about when I go see the movie that I wasn't aware of. Other than that, I think it just looks interesting. It really reminds me of kind of like Captain America, like the first Avenger. I think there are a lot of pieces that seem similar just because it's another World War movie. But still, I'm excited to see it. I think I'll definitely check it out. But other than that, it's kind of a blank slate for me right now.
Had you seen Batman versus Superman, Raphael?
I still haven't. I
Okay.
think,
You
it
could
was
do
just canned so hard that it's hard for me to be willing to go see it. Um,
I would say you don't have to be you don't have to be scared of it. There's a really interesting scene in there where Bruce Wayne discovers kind of the true, her origin. Yes. Well, I don't want to say her origin, but her nature, and it's kind of an interesting scene. Um, that will kind of explain part of what you just were talking about. Worth it for that alone if you're going to be watching
Gotcha.
that movie.
Yeah, I'll go on record and saying Batman vs Superman is fine. You can go see it, no problem.
Right, if I end up hating it, I'm blaming both of you. You have it on record now.
People dumped on it, but it was fine. Give up. All right. Yeah, I don't think the World War I thing is kind of in her comic book origin, because I believe her first appearance was like 1941, and Steve Trevor was always like a World War II fighter pilot. I think they're just changing that backstory to make it different from, like you said, Captain America: First Avenger. Otherwise, it would be very similar, I think. And it's kind of like in video games, the Battlefield series is going back to World War I, just because they're kind of sick of World War II and they're kind of sick of modern day. So it's just something different, I think, for Wonder Woman character. And yeah, like Phil said, I'm just excited for it as well. I didn't see anything in that trailer that put me off, but then again, I think Warner Brothers if they do one thing well, it's trailers. Whether they can execute that in the film, I don't know, but I don't see any red flags, honestly.
I'll conclude too. I don't think they did no wrong with putting Gal Gadot in that role. Just watching her, move in the battle scenes and things, and there's probably a lot of CGI going on in there, but it was very believable. I thought watching that, an Amazon warrior, not even thinking twice before, running into a group of soldiers like that, saying stuff.
All right, so let's move along. Speaking of all these characters getting together, we'll look at the Justice League trailer next. For me, that trailer seemed to come out of nowhere. I don't know who was expecting a full-blown Justice League trailer. It was like 2 minutes long at least. But this trailer came with plenty of insight into the new team. It featured small vignettes of Ben Affleck as Bruce Wayne, traveling around trying to recruit a team of special people to help him fight some looming threat. Aquaman and Flash are featured heavily, with a few scenes of Wonder Woman and Cyborg also thrown in. What did you guys think of this trailer, and what do you think of this direction for what they're calling the DC Extended Universe?
Phil, I'll let you go first on this one.
I totally liked it. Like you said, was surprised, wasn't expecting it. Nice to see that they're this far along that they can give us that. Lots of new characters that I'm, again, unfamiliar with, but interested to see them introduced. And, I don't know, very intriguing. Only makes me want to see more, which is what a trailer's supposed to do, I guess, right? I'm not sitting there going, yuck, that's stupid and that's dumb, and they would never do that. They're quite the opposite. That's it.
Raphael, any thoughts?
One of the biggest complaints that I think DC movies, at least the cinematic universe, kind of get is that it kind of takes itself too seriously and that it's too dark. So I was really kind of pleasantly surprised by kind of how light the trailer was and how there is quite a bit of humor in it. And I think maybe the problem that the old movies had were that you have these characters who by themselves are a little bit I want to say kind of bland, but once you put them together and you give them a chance to interact with each other, you're going to have a much more fun, much more vibrant movie. And I think I'm really excited for that, just to see a little bit of a shift in tone. I guess I feel a little bad saying this. Does anyone else think that Jason Momoa doesn't really know how to act? He just stands around and looks angry.
Well, he didn't do so well in the Conan movie. I know that. But, I mean, we all loved him as Khal Drogo, right?
Yeah, but he's still playing Khal Drogo. I mean...
Well, the more I see of Momoa, the more I think, hey, look, it's Khal Drogo doing this. Hey, look, it's Khal Drogo doing that. It's like...
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's cool. He's an interesting character, and I guess Aquaman can be whoever you want him to be, and it was really cool seeing that scene where like he's drinking and then he just like walks into the ocean. But beyond that, like I can't see him carrying any dialogue and stuff like that. So
Well, that's the thing. I would have we really seen him act? Has he really had any lines in anything? You know, and maybe he will. I have to reserve judgment, I guess, for him as Aquaman.
Yeah, and it seems like they're kind of sidelining him a little bit, because they even had that little scene where Wonder Woman asks, well, is he joining us or not? And Batman's like, well, more not than yes. And then when they show the scene of them all together, it's Flash and Cyborg and Batman and Wonder Woman, and you don't really see Aquaman.
One thing, though, Raphael brought up was the change in tone of these, and something I had read, too, is we have yet to meet as the crew again, but since we last met, Jeff Johns is now, president or editor-in-chief, I don't know, of DC.
President, yeah.
And I read recently, you weren't the only one to notice that. I also read an article where they were mentioning the change in the tone, and they were maybe attributing that to him being in presidency. And another thing I'd read, too, that he's actually been the president for a little while now. It's just that no one ever announced it, but it wasn't really a big secret either.
Yeah,
so
and
he's already had a chance to have an effect on the humorless DC universe.
They also announced a larger role for Ben Affleck, and I think they really played that up in this trailer, like the likability of Ben Affleck as not Batman really at all, but mostly as Bruce Wayne. I think they really played on his likability. They let him have some nice one-liners, some interaction with each character. His interaction with Wonder Woman was good. His little bit with the Flash. We haven't really talked about Ezra Miller as the Flash, but he definitely brought that comedic element you guys have been talking about. And even Jason Momoa at the end when he picks him up and slams him against the wall, and he's like, "Hey, I heard you talk to fish." You know?
I think that was the high point of the trailer for me. I think that really kind of set a tone, and I was like, yeah, I'll go see this. If it's anything like this, I will go see it.
You know, it kind of reminds me of Downey Jr. as Iron Man. I mean, I think he's always more of an interesting scenes to watch on screen when he's actually playing Tony Stark than when he's in the suit. And so maybe that's the same relationship. You know, Bruce Wayne is more interesting than Batman sometimes, or can be.
Yeah, I definitely think that's true. Alright, so we've hashed out the Justice League trailer. Let's move on to what is hopefully the final trailer for the Suicide Squad, considering that the movie releases in August 5th, just a week away. The trailer featured plenty of footage from previous spots, lots of stuff we've seen before, but it also had a few new scenes, including one in which Deadshot, played by Will Smith, points out to the rest of the Suicide Squad that they're the patsies, and no matter what happens here, even if they survive, they're going to get blamed for whatever disaster is about to happen. And then the footage shows a little bit more disaster than we've seen. Some interesting stuff maybe happening that's going to force the Suicide Squad to be heroes, because we all know they're all villains. So I think this sets up what is going to be their motivation to actually do something heroic. So we're going to talk about the Suicide Squad in depth a little later, but what do you guys think about this trailer and that sort of premise of Suicide Squad as heroes?
I'm getting Suicide Squad trailer and news fatigue. I want there to just be a movie. I don't know anything about these characters. I'm interested in seeing Harley Quinn on film. I guess I'm kind of interested in seeing Joker, but I can't think of the actor's name all of a sudden.
Jared Leto?
Yes, Jared Leto. Although I have some Jared Leto problems, but I'm doing the best to overcome those and give him a fair shake with the Joker. I've heard some behind-the-scenes stories about how he maybe tried to get into that role a little bit too much and in some odd ways.
Yeah, he's a pretty creepy guy.
I think is this I don't remember. Yeah, this is something that we're going to actually turn into a topic of the week on the actual show and maybe go see as a group. I'm looking forward to that, but again, is mainly an introduction to the whole character. I think there was something you put in our notes asking us, do we dare predict anything about this movie? Knowing nothing about it, I predict that one or two of them, when all is said and done, will now be on the loose, so to speak.
All right, well, we'll talk about that. We've got a whole segment for that.
Okay, yeah.
Raphael, any thoughts on Suicide Squad trailer?
I like Phil. I'm getting a little tired of keeping up with all the new trailers and stuff like that. You know, I think one good trailer might be better than like 12 okay trailers, but regardless of that, you know, I'm still gonna go see it. Like, it looks interesting, but I know nothing about any of these characters. Suicide Squad is really one of those comics that I think you have to be like a really heavy DC reader of like multiple different like heroes to really want to get into it. Because I mean, as someone who doesn't read DC much at all, I'm not familiar with any of these characters besides Harley Quinn and maybe Deadshot a little bit. But so far, I like the character interactions that they have. Like I said earlier, you know, DC has that really dark tone to it. This seems like it's a little bit lighter. I really don't know what to predict, though, because I have no idea how audiences are going to take it, or how I guess it's just going to resonate with people who are fans of the DC universe. So at this point, all the trailers that I've seen, I still can't peg it down, which I think is kind of interesting. So I think it definitely does warrant buying a ticket to go see it.
Yeah, it is a bit of a strange choice, but I've heard a lot of people compare it to the Guardians of the Galaxy. You know, that was kind of an odd choice for Marvel. So if it goes over as well as Guardians of the Galaxy, then I think it'll be good for the DC universe. But we're going to discuss all that in depth later, so let's not burn all of our bridges now. Let's go to something that's definitely a lot more lighter, a lot more fun, and that is an extended Lego Batman trailer was released. This trailer features Alfred lecturing Batman about life and responsibility, including the responsibility of raising the orphan boy he somewhat accidentally adopted. So what do you guys think of Lego Batman in general, and what appears to be what's going to be a Lego Batman and Robin movie? Because there was a lot of scenes of Batman and Robin and sort of this weird father-son relationship that they have brought to life in what's essentially a kids movie.
I guess I'll just put the challenge out there as someone who doesn't find the Lego genre appealing. I know there are Lego games. You can do Marvel and DC Lego stuff on Steam, if I'm not mistaken. But I tried one once, and then I learned it's just ported. It's just not even intended for PC originally, so that didn't help either. Anyway, I leave it up to you guys to tell me, why should I watch or be interested in Lego anything? Sorry.
Raphael, any thoughts on the Lego stuff?
I'm just realizing that me and Phil might be the worst people to talk about this, because I've never been a huge fan of Legos or anything like that. And the whole Lego Indiana Jones, Lego Harry Potter, Lego Star Wars thing, I just skipped all of that stuff because I was like, I can just go see and associate with the actual universes instead of the Lego versions. This is also something that we need Randy for, because I know Randy's really into the whole Lego stuff and whatnot. But I know the movies are fun and kind of plucky and geared towards a slightly younger audience, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's good that they diversify enough to have things for a younger audience, especially with how dark the movies are and stuff like that. And I think we're talking about The Killing Joke next, so it's good that they have something a little bit lighter, to offset all that stuff.
You actually raise a good point. Even comic book violence and sometimes the plots that are in your average comic book can still be a little bit too much for probably new readers. So it's nice that I think that that is a good thing I think that the Lego industry does, is it gives people at least a launching on point that's kid safe and can grow an interest in something that's going to ultimately pan out to be something more enjoyable once they become of age with the more grown-up stuff.
Well, that makes three of us then. I agree that it's good to have something for kids out there. I also agree that I have not seen any Lego movies at all, not even like the Lego movie. I haven't even seen that, much less the Batman ones. But I will say that I liked this trailer. The trailer was fun. It was funny. The humor wasn't like, kid level humor. It was very, something you might think of as Pixar level humor, something that's good for adults,
That's
good for
important.
kids. So I think this, I thought it did a good job of trailer. As someone who I had no interest in watching this movie until I saw the trailer. Now I kind of want to watch the movie. So good job, Lego trailer. All right. So since we don't know anything about Legos, let's move on to what Raphael alluded to, news about Batman: The Killing Joke, DC Animation's first ever R-rated movie. Some news surfaced at Comic-Con, specifically about a new subplot added to the story that wasn't in the comics, that focused on Batgirl and her romantic relationship with Batman, including a rooftop sex scene that appears in the first half hour of the movie. So this movie has since been released in digital platforms, so it's out there. Reviews have been mixed to unfavorable. Right now it's sitting at 53% on Rotten Tomatoes. I've seen some reviews of it where comic book fans of it have said that it's a fine adaptation of the comic book, except for that added story, which makes no sense. And I saw another person who had no ties to comic books simply call it a vile movie. They really hated everything about it. So, what do you guys think about this? Have either of you seen the movie? If not, what do you think of the controversy surrounding it?
I haven't seen the movie, but I think vile is kind of a strong word. But The Killing Joke is such like a heavy story and such a heavy comic for I think anyone to read that I guess I can totally see someone having that response. The day that the movie actually came out, a bunch of my friends made like a day out of watching it together. And I kind of went with their reviews first to kind of inform myself if I wanted to watch it or if I want to go and buy it. And they all seemed very pleased. And these are, I have friends who are really big DC fans, and they seemed perfectly okay with the movie. They didn't seem disappointed. They said it was adequate. I think that's the word that was used to describe it. It was an adequate movie, like a companion movie almost. And I wasn't aware of the whole rooftop scene, but that's not a very clean place to do stuff. So I wouldn't recommend that.
Well, it might have been an homage to a recent Catwoman scene in the comic books. In the New 52 comic books, there's a scene where Batman and Catwoman sort of get down on a rooftop. So I don't know if they just included that for fun or what. There was some commentary by the producers of the film just saying they needed more backstory for Batgirl in terms of context for the film. Because when you read a comic book, you understand who Batgirl is without having to be told who Batgirl is. But when you make a movie, you kind of have to show the audience, okay, this is who Batgirl is. This is why she's important to Batman.
I think that was a really big comic consensus, was that, I think one of the biggest complaints is that it's almost like a Batgirl movie. That, it's The Killing Joke, and then half of it's a Batgirl movie. And I think that detracts a little bit away from it, but also at the same time, I understand that you have to make her an important character, but I think, at least in the comics, it was always more like, he was a mentor, if, I'm not mistaken. And that is kind of where, I guess, like, the tension comes from, later on in the comic when, she gets kidnapped and stuff, was, it's someone that Batman wants to protect, and I always assumed that was enough. Like, I don't understand why you have to make her, like, a romantic interest and do all that stuff. It feels like you're jumping through hoops. But, I still haven't seen it, so maybe it'll be more clear to me once I download it illegally or something.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either, but it's definitely goes against everything in the comic books, because she's not only is she usually a teenager in the comic books, she's also Jim Gordon's daughter, so and like you said, he's a mentor figure to her. So there's a lot of lines crossing there when you start thinking about, romantic relationship and a sex scene that I think just is real creepy territory that I don't think a lot of people wanted to see. Definitely fans of Batgirl if you're a fan of Batman and you're like, I don't care about this Batgirl story, then I can see how you wouldn't really be offended. But if you're a Batgirl fan and you go into this movie, I can see how you could be offended. But since none of us have seen the movie, like, we can't really comment on it. At least that part of it. So let's move on to our next segment of DC television news. A little lighter, a little brighter. If you're looking for the bright side of DC Extended Universe, you go to the television show. And if you're a fan of the DC television universe and you were dying to know what happened at the end of Flash Season 2, then you got a nice surprise and you get to find out basically everything that's happening in a Comic-Con trailer for Season 3. And in a word, what's happening is Flashpoint. The trailer showed a changed world where Barry Allen gets everything he's ever wanted, but nothing is quite right. So he gets the girl, he gets his parents back, he gets, his friends, but none of them remember him the way he wants to be remembered. There are things going on that are, sort of dark forces closing in on him. Are you guys familiar with the Flashpoint series or the Flashpoint event in DC Comics? And if so, what do you think about bringing that iconic storyline to the television series?
I came in at Flashpoint with DC Comics because I knew the New 52 was coming, because that was very soon before New 52, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was one of the things that brought about the New 52 was
okay.
Flashpoint.
So I think it's interesting that they're going to tackle it. And did they say, I know we're talking specifically Flash, but is any of that going to ripple across any of the other shows, have they said?
I did not see that. I assume it's going to have to in some way because they're all tied together.
Okay. I guess that would be my major question, and then I have to say pretty much a disclaimer, because now looking at this list, I'm listening. We're about ready to talk about 5 DC shows that I don't watch any of. So all I can say though is that I think I'm impressed because 3 seasons ago, I'm not sure we would have said Gotham was going to be around in 3 years. Others have gotten more positive reviews right out of the gate. Flash, I think, was the network's #1 show, and maybe still is. Anyway, having said all that, just to simply to say, I'm encouraged. I'm happy to see that DC is having some success on television in general, but I'm just not having the time in my schedule to really know much beyond that about those shows. I'm not sure any of us would have predicted that DC would have had some television success, given what was going on back in the days when those shows all launched with their comic book lines. So, kudos to DC.
I'm not too familiar with the DC universe. I know a little bit about Flashpoint, but the thing that I do know is that a lot of people love this show, and a lot of people are so excited for it. I actually have a lot of friends who watch it, and they're not comic book readers at all. They're just people who enjoy like a good TV show, and this seems to deliver in pretty much everything, and there's a lot of hype for the next season. So I think that says something. As someone who doesn't really watch the show, I've watched a few episodes, and I find it entertaining enough. Maybe not enough to bring me back, but I think that has comics. I guess maybe if it's if there's enough acclaim, I might check it out. But so far, I'm just not really into the show. But a lot of other people are, and I think that says something.
I get the impression too. We talk about the darkness of the DC movie properties, but I get the impression that's not the case for television. Is there more fun atmosphere about these at least?
Yeah, the TV show. Go ahead, Raphael.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. There's a huge difference, and I think that's what shocked me most when I first watched it. Like when I first watched the first few episodes, was just how different it is from the movies, in terms of tone and just how light it is, and more like the comics it is. I want to say.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say that it's basically comic books brought to life. The Flash TV show is much more like a comic book than just about any other show. Maybe it's more like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. than anything the DC Universe is doing. So it's definitely light, definitely a lot of comic book plots, so I think that this plot fits in pretty well with what they've been doing.
It makes me want to go back and catch up now.
Yeah, definitely, I would encourage that. All right, let's see my my internet is failing me here.
Oh, okay. I'm showing we had Arrow season 5 next.
Yeah, I'm trying to bring up my write-up of that here. It's not working.
Unfortunately, I also don't know much about Arrow. I'm not very well versed in the DC TV properties, so I'm gonna black out for a minute, and you guys give me a call.
This might all of a sudden become the Mitch show. I should just say I watched Arrow season 1 and thought that was interesting to keep me going through. But then when season 2 came out, there just wasn't anything really calling me back too much. And I'm surprised that Arrow started 2 seasons before Flash ever came out. I guess I didn't realize it had come out as early as it had.
Yeah,
Arrow still had quite a bit of acclaim, and I know they did the whole Constantine crossover, and people were pretty big and jazzed about that, but I think that's the last I've really heard of it and the last I've really experienced with it.
Yeah, Arrow's been going on since before Flash, and Flash actually made his debut in an episode of Arrow.
Okay, that's right.
So that's where they got their first crossover, and then, like Raphael said, Constantine, and they did that crossover with Supergirl. And they have, all of their other shows are all tied in. So this being a Flashpoint, it could change all of their shows. It could theoretically do for the TV shows what they did for the comic books, which is just change everything.
Well, I'm pretty sure that for a while, and this may still be the case, but I believe that the writers for Flash, oh wait, it may have been Arrow, or it could have been both. I'm not sure. One of the writing teams crossed over into the comics for at least an arc.
Oh, really?
So creatively, there was a crossover between the comic and the show. I can't remember now if that was Green Arrow. I think it was Green Arrow. I think it was right after Lemire's run on Green Arrow is when some of the creative team from the show came over to the comic for a while.
Alright, still having technical difficulties here.
Yeah, I was saying I think the next order of business we had was Gotham season 3.
Yeah.
Alright, let's see.
Survived having never seen it, but I heard a lot of people just say it was spoon-feeding us innuendo, and it's like, gee, that guy walks like the Penguin.
And that one girl is drinking milk and she's petting a cat.
Yes,
I wonder what that could be. But
all those
from
cliches.
what I've heard, the show's kind of started to recognize the fact that it did that, and they're starting to try to correct that as best they can. So I don't think that's as much of a problem anymore. I'm kind of surprised that the show's lasted so long, just because I feel like the lashback was so bad from like the first and second season that I'm just impressed that it has staying power, and I think now that it's made it over that hump, it'll stick around. But
the last I remember hearing too was only at the beginning of season 2, and that was supposed to be, we're listening to a lot of the critiques on our show. We're going to try to make some improvements in like season 2. I don't want to say like a reboot or whatever, but it was going to be an improvement. They were concentrating on certain storytelling aspects they had neglected before, but I never heard how that panned out. You suggest though that season 2 didn't or got mixed reviews?
At least from the people who I know who watch the show. Once again, I have a lot of friends who read DC and are really into the universe and the movies and the TV shows, and they watched it, but I feel like there was like a little bit of reluctance, and maybe it was just left over from season 1. But since then, I've talked to them about it, and they said, yeah, I think the show is really kind of kind of come into its own and taken steps to avoid the pitfalls that it had when it first started. But I think it lost a lot of viewers in that first and second season. So
Yeah, so season 3 is coming up, and as you mentioned, season 1 and 2 mixed reviews. They really threw sort of kitchen sink approach, threw in a ton of villains and all that kind of stuff, just trying to see what would stick. So during an interview at Comic-Con, series co-producer and executive producer Danny Cannon offered up some details on what season 3 will bring, and some of those details involve the New 52 storyline of the Court of Owls, which was one of the most well-received storylines of the New 52. And in their version of the Court of Owls storyline, it's how this is going to push young Bruce Wayne into developing his alter ego of Batman. So they're going to touch directly on how the events of Season 2 paved the way for the Court of Owls, and how their involvement is going to tie in with some other classic villains like Hugo Strange and his Indian Hills research facility, and how they have some master plan that's going to affect every major character in the show.
Wow.
So what do you guys think of this, bringing the Court of Owls, a very, very good comic book plot line, to the television series?
I think it's really good. Like you said before, they really took like a kitchen sink approach and just threw all the characters they could put into the show. It's cool to see that they're actually picking, I guess not like a character in this sense, but like they're kind of picking like a theme and like a group that resonates with people, instead of just throwing everybody in. Like this is going to do well. I'd say it's really hard to screw it up, so it's good to know that they're, I guess, finally committing to something a little bit more permanent and something that was more well received, and that's going to have a little bit more of a lasting impact on the show.
Yeah, Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo really did well on that. And correct me if I'm wrong, but Court of Owls, that's kind of like the secret society of Gotham, right? That kind of, we were led to believe, had a lot to do, kind of like the Illuminati of Gotham, had a lot to do with how Gotham has turned out, or has always been crime-ridden.
Yeah, in the comic book, in the storyline, it goes all the way back to the founding of Gotham, and basically they were there sort of when somebody needed to be killed, they killed them. When something needed to be changed, they changed it. They were definitely sort of a guiding hand that had always been there. And there were, in this comic book, there were hints that they were behind the murder of Bruce Wayne's parents.
Yes.
So as a youth, he started investigating the Court of Owls. So that might be where this ties into the television show, where they're focused on the young Bruce Wayne.
You might be remembering correctly that Gotham, the series, takes place a little bit, it kind of predates current-day DC comic.
Yeah, it's definitely, Bruce Wayne is about 13 years old. So
okay, so it's a perfect time to roll in an organization that was very instrumental in his origin in the new DC mythos.
I think definitely if they're going to go with that, for sure.
Yeah, that's perfect timing then, I guess, if they wanted to. Yeah, that's a good idea. That could work. Question: how many, just in general, does Gotham have crossovers given its time era discrepancy? Are there other DC heroes that come from other shows or not?
No, it's a completely separate universe. It's basically, I heard people call it the Jeff Johns universe. That could explain why it's been around for so long. If the president of DC, it's his sort of baby. So.
Yeah, we'll keep it going until it becomes a hit.
Yeah. All right, so we'll move from the Dark Knight to the Man of Steel. It's been announced, and they've shown some actual costume pictures of Superman coming to the now CW series Supergirl. It's announced that an actor from the Teen Wolf franchise, trying to look up his name here. My notes got obliterated. I lost it. Okay, well, anyway, they're bringing Superman to Supergirl. In previous seasons, he's only been seen in sort of blurry photographs. They've shown him kind of off-screen. You've seen maybe his cape or his boots, but you've never actually seen Superman, and he's never been involved in a storyline. So now it looks like they're going to actually involve him with the Supergirl storyline. So do you guys think that this adds to Supergirl or detracts from Supergirl?
I think it could add. I don't think I was the demographic that Supergirl was meant for. So after like 1 or 2 episodes, I stopped watching it. My main draw for that was actually Calista Flockhart, who I thought did a good job in her role. Although when I heard this was happening, I thought, man, what a wonderful opportunity to bring Tom Welling back in a reprisal of his Superboy role, but now make him Superman. And if I'm not mistaken, even on the network where that ended, right? Back in the day, I thought that there had been talk back in the day that maybe Tom Welling might become involved again. I thought, but anyway, obviously not the case. I guess. Well, is it Sci-Fi Network that's got the Krypton series coming up? It just makes me wonder how far they're going to be allowed to go, license-wise, given the fact that other properties are out there. I think it can't hurt Supergirl. I don't think it can hurt Supergirl, and it might bring in new viewers. I guess it depends on what's going on in Superman's life. How does it relate to what's been going on in the Superman movies? Is it going to be a completely different Superman?
That was my understanding, was that I think this show takes place in like one of the different Earths, so it is a different Superman. But also from like the pictures I've seen and stuff, like even the costume looks different. And I was a little worried because the costume pictures that I saw, he didn't have his cape on, and I'm like, oh god, please don't make that CGI. Please don't CGI that cape onto him. Did anyone learn anything from like Green Lantern and stuff like that? But at the same time, I think like Phil says, I don't think it can really take away from the show at all. I think it can only kind of enrich it by giving it more ties to the rest of the DC universe, and seeing how those characters interact is one of the fun parts of reading the comic books, and I think it's even one of the highlights of watching the show. So I think it can only really help. But once again, like Phil said, I'm not the target demographic either. So
I'd forgotten too that switched networks, right? That moved from CBS, and I think it was a combination viewer/budget. They wanted the show to survive, but it was too expensive to produce.
Right. Yeah.
Related to the number of viewers it wasn't getting. And CW, is that where it moved to? CW?
Yeah, it did move to the CW, and like Raphael said, the Flash crossover with Supergirl confirmed that Supergirl was in a different universe, because the Flash used his sort of Flashpoint powers to break through the barrier and get to her universe.
Okay.
Because they've established that in the Arrowverse, is what they call the CW universe, there is no Superman. They've established that. So now this is a chance to possibly bring Superman to that Arrowverse.
Behind the scenes, I don't know, are they doing it to increase ratings, or are they just doing it plot-wise? They've moved to a new network now with a budget that they can work with, so I said that they can do no wrong, but in a way I'm all of a sudden wondering if they mess it up, that could be the end of Supergirl if they handle Superman stupid.
Well, I think the interesting is that Supergirl and Flash and Arrow and all those shows have always been produced by the same guy, Greg Berlanti.
Yeah, okay.
So now that he's got them all under one network umbrella, I think now he can start merging their stories together and maybe have a larger plan. So this
and they're used to making shows like that.
Yeah, that's true. The other sort of behind the scene things is they're moving the show, to your point, make it cheaper. They're moving it to Vancouver, where all the other Arrow and Flash and all that are shot. Mm-hmm. So I think
something CBS was not equipped to or willing to.
Right. Yeah, they've got their own studios in California somewhere. So I think this is good for Supergirl. It expands her universe. It like you said, I think they're doing it for plot reasons rather than just as a gimmick. Because, like Raphael said, they've already got pictures of the guy in the costume, and people were kind of making fun of him because he looks like a smaller Superman, a thinner Superman. So when he stands next to Supergirl, it's almost like she's a little bit more imposing than him, which is interesting. Is that on purpose? I don't know. Is that just?
Well, I mean, it is her show, so
yeah, she is the star.
Yeah. So I think, like you said, it seems like good things for Supergirl. And I don't think they're going to do a Superman show. Maybe they could do a spin-off with this guy. I don't know, but
Or, it could be like Phil said, and it could be the death of the show. So either way, something will happen, and that's good.
either way, something interesting is going to happen.
Well, if it goes bad, they can always do the death of Superman, right?
Yeah, that's true.
That's when you know it's gotten really, really bad, when they're doing Death of Superman.
They could bring Zack Snyder in and do this Death of Superman.
I was about to say, I think that's right up his alley. Tone-wise, he will hit that nail on the head.
All right, so let's move on to the other show in the Arrowverse, which is DC's Legends of Tomorrow. Now, if you saw anything of their inaugural season, you saw they dealt with one of the most nefarious villains of the DC universe, which was Vandal Savage. And they had to do a lot of time travel stuff because Vandal Savage, he's an immortal. He, lives throughout time, and it was a strange alternate dimension where he was in this other dimension, crossing over to our dimension. He was going to take over everything because he became this powerful person, and they had a lot of trouble. Right? These DC's Legends of Tomorrow. This also ties into the Flash, where Flash has gone to different universes, and he's met different versions of the Flash. I'm blanking on the name right now. Not Barry Allen. Who's the other Flash? The old-timey Flash?
I want to say Wally West.
No, not Wally West.
That's who I would have said. Barry Allen, Wally West.
The old Flash with the tin pot helmet and the lightning bolts.
And we call ourselves.
Yeah, I'm just blanking on the name.
You have to cut this part out.
You got to cut this part out. Anyway, the Legends of Tomorrow are going to be crossing over with the Justice Society of America, which was a precursor to the Justice League, made up of all those old-timey superheroes, like the Flash with the tin pot on his helmet, the old Green Lantern with the crazy, weird-colored costumes. And there have been lots of different incarnations of the Justice Society of America. But the other thing that's happening is that they're bringing in the Legion of Doom. So Season 2 is essentially not going to be the Legends of Tomorrow so much as it's going to be Justice Society versus the Legion of Doom. So what do you think of them sort of switching this up? They're adding new characters, characters like Stargirl, Dr. Midnight, all of these lesser-known Golden Age superheroes. Alan Scott as the Green Lantern instead of, more modern Green Lanterns. What do you guys think of them using a lot of those different characters?
I like the idea. I think there's a series last year. I was going to say this kind of was a series that had an entire season and no one noticed. I think it wasn't until it was on like episode 6 or 7 that it was getting. And I read a headline that kind of said the same thing. Was it like the series that no one asked for, or something like that? I'm not sure. And is it a spin-off of something else? May I first ask?
Yeah, it's a spin-off of both Flash and Arrow.
Okay.
Basically, a bunch of their villains and B-level people get recruited by a time traveler named Rip Hunter, who's basically like Doctor Who of the DC universe, and he recruits them to go fight Vandal Savage.
Okay. I guess I'm all for it. Like I said, this was a series I didn't even know existed, so if this is going to be something that will help raise its notoriety and maybe give it some ratings, though I'm not necessarily saying they're suffering, then yay them, but I don't really have other opinion other than that. Had you heard of this before?
This kind of seems like one of those DC kind of tactics where you're like, hey, we need to make TV shows, like our old TV shows are doing well. Let's just pull some names out of a hat and we'll make a TV show with whatever names we pull out of that hat. And then, if it fails, we have like 6 other TV shows, so it's no big deal. We don't have to worry about it. But like Phil said, I think this is the show that no one really asked for, and it's still, trying to find like its audience. But with any show, especially any show revolving around comic books and stuff, it's always cool to see them pull more stuff from the source material that hasn't had a chance to be featured yet. So in that sense, it's very interesting, and I'm glad they're doing it. But I haven't. I think I've seen a commercial for this show, and that's the most exposure I've gotten from it.
It's kind of like if you're just throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks, then please
Yeah,
at least have the respect of doing the story justice, But please don't come across as a show that's trying to just throw stuff at the wall to see what sticks. And I always like to see a new character, on the screen. But don't just do it to be doing it, because if you do it poorly, you're going to make us wish that you had never done it to begin with.
Yeah, so it does kind of have that feeling, but I think they've got a plan behind it. I've got a quote here from
It kind of sounds like it, dude.
executive producer Mark Guggenheim. Says, for season 2 of Legends, we decided that the perfect antagonists for TV's first ever team of superheroes would be TV's first ever team of supervillains, recruited from the ranks of Arrow and the Flash's deadliest adversaries. Being huge fans of the old Super Friends cartoon, we've come to call this group the Legion of Doom. So they're definitely trying to tie these comic book type
Okay.
characters and ideas back to their own television show. So
Okay, that's good then.
it's got me excited for
Their
it.
intentions are good.
Yeah, I think so. As someone, I watched the first series on and off. I don't think I watched every episode. It's the same way I am with all of these CW shows, quite honestly. I sort of watch 2, take 2 episodes off, watch another one. It's not serious television like Game of Thrones or something like that, where you've got or Walking Dead, to use a comic book show, where you have to watch every episode. Some of them are Monster of the Week. There's a larger plot line going on, but if you watch 1 or 2, you can catch up. It's no big deal.
I just did a Google search for Legion of Doom, and I totally forgot that they were in that old cartoon where they're like their secret base is like a skull that looks like Darth Vader's head in the middle of a swamp.
Yeah.
So those are some pretty good, I guess, like retro feelings I get from that. So I guess I'd be excited to see that in any capacity. So.
I don't know about you, Phil, but I grew up with that cartoon. That was like, when I was, 4 or 5 years old or whenever it came out. That was like the Saturday morning cartoon for me was the Super Friends.
Yeah, they still showed it by the time that I was watching like Saturday morning stuff. So.
Wonder Twin Powers activate.
Yeah.
I've seen that too. So.
What was the name of their monkey?
Oh man. Oh, that warrants another Google search.
Yeah, I want to say Gleek.
Oh, I think you're right.
Oh, yep. Looks like Gleek is Mitch. Mitch wins this round, guys.
All right, so that ends our discussion of DC television news. Not the smoothest segment we've done.
It was a little choppy, but I think we approached it with quite a bit of spirit.
All right, I think you're right.
Can I add, before we go over, was the original Flash with the tin pan hat, Jay Garrick?
Jay Garrick, yes. There you go.
Which one of us? There's someone on the podcast who reads a lot of Flash. I want to say it's Chris.
Alec, I think.
Alec? It's Alec or Chris? We got to make sure that we get one of them in here to correct us about everything Flash, and then have Randy on.
Comments in the show notes.
Yeah. Chris was definitely a big fan of the TV show. I know that for sure. Okay. We should have had one of them on, but hey.
See, this will bring them out of the woodwork. They'll want to be on next episode, won't they?
Let's just get everything wrong and make it. No. They know that they'll have to be on here, so.
Yeah, that's why I wonder. Either we have the best listeners in the world, or we have the quietest listeners in the world. Because I feel like we get so many things wrong, and no one ever corrects us.
They're so polite.
Maybe
Very
the
polite.
best listeners are the most quiet listeners.
Maybe the silent majority, as they say. All right, so let's move on to something a little less polite than our wonderful listeners and viewers, which is the Suicide Squad. Got a whole special here we're going to do about the upcoming movie. First thing we're going to do is set a little backstory for the Suicide Squad, because as I understand it, you guys aren't too familiar with who they are. So the modern incarnation is commonly referred to as Task Force X. It's a covert strike team made up of incarcerated death row supervillains. They act as a deniable covert assets for the United States government. The members of the Suicide Squad undertake high-risk Black Ops missions in exchange for commuted prison sentences. The group operates out of Belle Reve Penitentiary, and it's under the directorship of Amanda Waller. And in the DC universe, they kind of use this as an excuse for how supervillains keep coming back. Like, we keep putting them in jail, and they keep getting out. Why? Well, it's because they go through this little Task Force X program, and if they survive, they get to go free.
That seems like a really, really bad idea.
Let's do that in real life.
Yeah, for sure.
That's not like a Suicide Squad. That's your chances aren't that bad squad.
It's like a Russian roulette squad.
Well, if you send out 6 supervillains and one of them comes back, it's a net positive, right?
And then it depends from whose view you're looking at. There.
Right.
Plus, it gives us, months, if not years, more of new comic adventures.
Absolutely. So let's discuss who the members are of this Suicide Squad. So there have been many, many incarnations throughout the years. They actually started in the Golden Age, but they weren't well defined back then. So in recent years, the usual suspects have been Amanda Waller, of course, as the director, Rick Flag, who's mostly portrayed as a disgraced soldier, Deadshot, who is of course a villain. He's an assassin, a paid gun for hire, who somehow keeps getting captured, usually by Batman, I assume, and Captain Boomerang, who is really a D-level, just kind of a psychopath who throws boomerangs. That's really who he is. Those 3, for whatever reason, have been in most incarnations of the Suicide Squad.
Probably because they keep getting caught.
What was that?
It says probably because they keep getting caught again. Like
Yeah,
as soon as they
probably.
get gone. Like he's trying to throw boomerangs at Batman and it just never goes well.
He gets a batarang in the face. So recent incarnations have kind of upgraded the squad. They've added Harley Quinn, El Diablo as regular members. They've added some heavier hitters such as King Shark, the Enchantress, Katana, things like that. Some real known villains as opposed to just D-list people. Although the squad is also usually filled out with characters you never heard of, just so they can kind of not make it back from the mission. So in this movie, the squad
Would those
is...
be the red shirts of Star Trek?
Those would be the red shirts of the Suicide Squad. So in the movie version, we have Waller, we have Rick Flag, we have Deadshot, we have Captain Boomerang. Harley Quinn and El Diablo are there as well. The King Shark role looks to be played by Killer Croc in the movie version. Enchantress is there, Katana is there, and I believe we have our red shirt in a villain named Slipknot, who's there in the early promos, but if you look at the promos from late in the movie, Slipknot is nowhere to be seen.
And I actually looked this up because I wanted to see what he did, and he's really good with knots.
Okay.
That's not a joke. He does knots.
Are you sure that's not a joke?
It's not a joke. So he's been to Boy Scout camp, is what you're saying.
Basically, he's got all his badges.
Now, the one wild card in the movie is the appearance of the Joker. As far as I've known, any research I've done, Joker has never been a member of the Suicide Squad. However, he is definitely confirmed for the movie. He's in the trailers. He's there doing something. So we got to wonder who he is, what he's doing in this Suicide Squad movie. So I'm going to ask you guys, what's your history with the Suicide Squad in the comic books? I think we know the answer to that, but I'll ask it anyway. What's your interest level in the movie? And does this Suicide Squad movie improve the DC cinematic universe, in your opinion? And do you think it can save it in the course of public opinion? So who wants to start with these questions here? Phil?
I know nothing about the Suicide Squad. Some of the characters I'm familiar with, but only because they've had smaller roles in larger books that I read. Um, Looking forward to see Will Smith. I think the thing that really sold me on it, strangely enough, is Viola Davis as Amanda Waller. I'm looking forward to seeing her in a role like that. It's kind of like throwaway. Was it you, Mitch, that recently talked about a forthcoming comic book about kind of like a wet squad of government agents who accidentally mess things up, and now the government's just going to come kill them? This kind of gets into this is like anti-hero, right? How do you root for bad guys? And I guess if you're going to, this is how you would set it up, because they're killing worse guys, right? Or doing bad things to worse guys. Anyway, I'm interested in the movie. Again, I know we know Leto's Joker is a little bit of a mystery as to why he's in the film, but I'm interested in seeing it. I'm interested in seeing Harley Quinn. I guess I'll leave it at that for now. I see the other, the topics coming up.
Do you have any opinion on the DC universe?
Oh.
I know a lot of people thought it was kind of hindered by Batman vs Superman. Can this redeem it?
Well, it's interesting because we talk about the dark DC universe, and certainly Batman vs Superman didn't do anything to lift that thing, and so now we are coming again with a movie like this. There aren't any heroes here. Now they might be working for the benefit of mankind in this film, but they're not. There's no one here you're going to put a poster on your wall and want to be like without people worrying about you, right? So I don't think it's going to do anything to change the opinion that DC's movies are dark, though we've seen, obviously, previews of things to come. I saw the only Batman vs Superman that I saw was the recently released on extended cut, and I liked it. That's something I will watch again. There was nothing about it that made me go, that made me angry. So to that end, tentative no, it's not going to hurt the DC universe unless it stinks. There's so many times I feel like I've said this on this show. It's like if they do this wrong, it's going to hurt. There's some things you can get wrong and people will forgive you, but I don't think this would be one of them. So, and like no other movie in recent memory, I really have trailer fatigue for Suicide Squad. I feel like, it's like by the end of this movie, will we have discovered that we saw all the movie already before we paid for the ticket?
Yeah, it seems that way. And to your point about having these villains on your wall as posters, I saw a disturbing Hot Topic has now a Joker and Harley Quinn line of clothes.
Dear God, help us.
Yeah, definitely. So, Raphael, what's your history? What's your thoughts?
Well, it was around the time that the movie was coming out where I was like, well, I have no idea what the hell Suicide Squad is, so I, asked Alec and you guys, and you guys described it to me, and I think I was like, so basically Marvel's Thunderbolts? And they were like, yeah, but, I think DC did it first. I was like, oh, okay, well, at least I know the premise. I get it right away. I've read stuff like that before. It's just the DC equivalent, or Marvel's DC equivalent, however you want to see it. But I think it's an interesting premise for a movie, and at the same time, it seems to have garnered a lot of attention from people who don't read comics for some reason. And I think I see that DC has kind of pulled out the big guns, that being Will Smith for this. So I think that's going to bring a whole lot of people in, despite what the movie's about or, what the premise is, or, a lot of people are just going to go to see the actors they like a lot. Putting Harley Quinn was a really smart choice because she has so many inherent fans. So, I think they marketed it very well and they selected people very well. But in terms of the movie, I kind of almost think it's like the Suicide Squad itself, where DC can lose on this one and still be okay. Because none of these characters are so major that, like, it's like, oh, you made a bad Superman movie? Like, we're going to remember that bad Superman movie you made. But it's like, oh, you made a movie full of, like, D-list characters that no one's ever heard of, and it didn't do that great. Like, I don't think you can lose that much. So I think they're really putting, like, a lot into this, but at the end of the day, if they end up losing out on it, if it's not a great movie, it's still not going to be so bad that it ends, like, future, like, DC movies. It might just, further erode their reputation for hyping things up. But I don't think it's going to be like any nail in the coffin. So
Yeah, I think your Thunderbolts analogy is a good one. If you're a fan of Marvel at all, you know who the Thunderbolts are. They're basically what I described the Suicide Squad is, incarcerated villains who are forced onto this team of, run by the government to do whatever the government wants.
And I think the
Venom?
only real difference is Thunderbolts normally have like an Avenger who leads them, and that might actually sell more comics having an Avenger lead a team of bad guys.
Is Venom a Thunderbolt?
Oh no, that's not to be. So you had the normal Thunderbolts who have been around for years, and those are villains who are like reformed. The newest incarnation of the Thunderbolts were under General Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, who you might know more as Red Hulk, and he just decided he wanted to do Black Ops stuff. So he recruited like Elektra, Punisher, Deadpool, Venom, Ghost Rider,
Oh,
and they just went on adventures and they called themselves the Thunderbolts because it's Thunderbolt Ross, but it had nothing to do with the actual like government program.
okay.
It was
Yeah,
still
I
a
re-
really great comic though if you guys ever want to check that out because that was actually a really solid run.
Yeah, Thunderbolts is pretty good. I got into the Thunderbolts when they were under Norman Osborn, that whole era.
They've had like Hawkeye lead them before and stuff like that. So
I think one thing I am looking forward to in Suicide Squad though is the Batman cameo, and then kind of in a broader scheme of things to see if that Batman cameo matters down the road.
yeah, from the trailers that I've seen, like I know you've seen like pieces of Batman. I know I saw him like on top of I think the Joker's car.
Yeah.
And when I first saw that, I was really surprised. I was like, "Oh, you're seeing Batman in this trailer, and he's not heavily featured." Like, if the movie can stand on its own without having that cameo like really play into it, I think that speaks towards like one of the strengths of the movie. But we've had so much revealed to us, but we haven't had it revealed to us in any like concrete fashion. So it's hard to even estimate what the movie's going to be like, despite the fact that we've probably seen more than half of it.
Yeah, we have seen a lot of trailers. And yeah, you make a good point there about the Batman trailer being kind of standalone, and that makes me wonder if the whole Joker stuff is standalone, if Joker doesn't really have a lot to do with the plot. He's more backstory for Harley Quinn, backstory for maybe the reason why they formed the Suicide Squad.
That seems like a
Could
huge way to just get people's money.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's not going to go very well with fans if he's only in there for like 15 minutes.
Well, they never do that on like the cover of a comic book.
Right. I think that's the one red flag I have for this movie is the Joker. What's he doing there? Is he just going to be a cameo that they're hyping up? Because Joker is obviously the number one character in this movie in terms of who knows who he is. Next would be Harley Quinn, but Joker's the biggest villain in the DC universe. So that could be one way that it hurts the film. If maybe this is just a setup for the Batman film. But my history with the comics is I've read a few of the graphic novels with the Suicide Squad. It's a very interesting idea of what they do and where they fit into the DC universe. I wasn't real interested in this movie to begin with, but after seeing all the trailers and the hype, and I am kind of more interested than I was to begin with. So I don't really have the trailer fatigue like Phil does. I don't really mind if I see this whole movie beforehand because I kind of have an idea of what it's going to be anyway, reading the comics. So I'm not in there with all that spoiler stuff. And I think it's going to be a Guardians of the Galaxy type film for the DC universe, where it's going to get the casual fans to go in and enjoy this weird, crazy action movie, and the hardcores will get all the references, and I think it'll be a good film for the DC extended universe.
Well, you see, that's the thing that I think is really interesting is that, because I know even I've done it, I've been making references to this being like DC's version of Guardians of the Galaxy, when I think when it comes down to it, when they actually see the movie, that might not be the case. Guardians of the Galaxy, like you said, was like a really straight kind of fun action movie that was like, even if you're not a comics reader, it's like a little wacky and you can still have fun with it. But I think Suicide Squad has way more going for it in terms of being like kind of compelling, because you have these characters who are bad guys, and I want to see them be bad guys. I don't want to see them, find the hero inside or some, I think that's the words that Star-Lord used in that BS scene or whatever. But I want to see them reluctantly doing good things, And I think there's a few parts in the trailer where you kind of like see that, but I think it's way more compelling to have a movie full of bad guys reluctantly being good than it is to have like just kind of some random characters that you throw in, being heroes the whole time. So I think Suicide Squad has a lot of potential, and almost I'd say more so than Guardians of the Galaxy. But it has to do what it does right and not try to be Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, definitely good points. I think none of these villains are really irredeemable. Some of them have crossed over to being good guys. Harley Quinn and Katana for sure. El Diablo has always been sort of, just not really a villain, but a guy who just does what he has to do to get by. You've got some assassins in there who are paid guys. Nobody really irredeemable except for the Joker. He's, completely irredeemable for sure. Killer Croc, kind of irredeemable, but he's another guy who's just more of a victim of his circumstance. The fact that he's a giant cannibal lizard, it's not really his fault. That's that's just who he is. Can't really help that. So there could be a chance that they go into that territory and, like you said, maybe ruin the movie. But hopefully the writers have thought of that and realized that they need to stick with who they are and be like, even they say in the trailer, we're the bad guys. Harley Quinn says that, Deadshot says that. So I think they got that part down. All right, any last thoughts on that before we move on to predictions? Okay, so we're going to end this on a bit of a fun note here. We're going to go through our official comics community rating system of good, bad, and mediocre. So I want your predictions. Will this movie be good, bad, or mediocre? Meaning, will you like it, will you not like it, or will you not really care? Either way. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. I think it will be mediocre towards good. I think it will be yes. Yes. Mediocre siding towards good.
All right, Phil's already going against the rating system here.
Wait a minute. I can only pick one. If I can only pick one, it'll be good.
All right, so you're gonna slide toward good. All right, I'm gonna write these down, and we're gonna come back to them afterwards, after the movie's over. And we're gonna tally up who's gonna win. All right, so Raphael, what's your prediction here?
I'm gonna say bad, but in the Michael Jackson sense of the word bad, where bad kind of means good. On the Raphael scale, it's 3.5 Ghost Rider skulls out of 5, which is actually mediocre. So I don't know what you want to do about that. If you want to do like a conversion table, we can get that set up. But
that sounds like a mediocre to me, Alec.
Yeah, it's mediocre.
All right, so 3.5 Ghost Rider heads / mediocre good bad.
We should make that our rating system, is Ghost Rider heads. Marvel will let us.
Right,
I mean, just flaming skulls, that's all.
Just flaming skulls. All right, so I'm going to go with the good prediction. I think this is going to be a positive film for the DC Universe. I think it's going to do well. So next, let's move on to something hopefully a little more tangible, something you'll have to, I'll be able to nail you down on this one. What will the Rotten Tomatoes score be for this? Now, if you know, Rotten Tomatoes has become sort of the internet's aggregator for movie opinions. And to give you a little background, Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice is sitting at 29%.
Yikes.
So
let's make this interesting, and whoever gets closest wins something at the shop next time you go in.
There's nobody here who has the right to do that, but yes, I agree.
All right,
we should get one of those artist editions.
Yes,
Could we have give a range of 10?
Yeah, that works. Yeah, just whoever's closest within a range of 10.
Whoever gets it perfect, I'll give them $20 store credit at the.
Oh, they just throwing in the big bucks.
That's right.
I will match $5, which is not matching at all.
All right, $25 store credit for whoever gets it on the nose.
Well, I'll take your money, and my prediction is it's going to get. Well, my range is that it will be between 70 and 80. I will say 78.
All right. All right, that's a good score. Positive side of things. Raphael, how do Ghost Rider heads equate to percentages? This might help the calculation table.
Ghost Rider heads were formerly banned from Rotten Tomatoes about 3 years back.
Okay.
And I haven't visited the site since. But I'm going to go ahead and call between 50 and 60%.
Ooh.
I'm going to assume 57%.
Wow, all right. So I'm going to be optimistic.
I know how harsh Rotten Tomatoes is. So.
Yeah, that's true. They are a little. That might bring mine down a little. You know, can I go for $1? Is that an option? I'll make that be my first prediction is $1. Then I think I'm going to go high. I'm going to say between 80 and 90%. I'm going to go 84%.
Wow, you are putting down some serious faith in this movie.
That's a 6-point spread between you and me.
Definitely. I think it's going to be gangbusters with the critics.
I can feel that artist edition's coming.
Yeah, they're just looking for a different kind of superhero movie, and I think this is going to be the one. So speaking of that, let's go with weekend box office. Weekend domestic box office. What's your prediction? Background, Batman vs. Superman, you might be surprised to hear this, did an amazing $170 million domestic for their opening weekend. What do you think Suicide Squad will do?
What's their opening weekend going to be? I forget. August 5th.
August 5th.
I just want to see what movies there are against.
Oh, Phil's doing research.
What will the weather be like that weekend? Is there an overcast?
All right. Just so you know, here's what's coming out. Suicide Squad, 9 Lives. It stars Jennifer Garner and Christopher Walken and Kevin Spacey. Let's Be Evil. The Little Prince. I'm just looking for anything else that looks even halfway like it's going to give it a threat. And we'll call that good. It looks to be the big movie of the week.
So it should get, as long as the weather is overcast.
Which will be fitting.
And the stars are in alignment for that day.
Well, I'm not a good predictor of box office. I say it'll get it to number 1 and it'll win that week. Is that enough, or do you want like dollar amounts?
Oh, we're going with dollar amounts here, for sure.
All right. Well, then I will say it will win with $250 million.
Oh my goodness. $250 million.
Yeah.
Opening weekend domestic box office.
Yeah.
Phil is swinging large. All right, Raphael, what do you got for box office here?
I'm going to say, if my math checks out, I'm going to say about tree fitting.
About tree fitting?
Tree fitting.
About tree fitting.
Wow. You guys are swinging for it. All right. So I'm undercutting, going back to my $1 philosophy here.
It's like on The Price is Right, you're the jerk who gets $1.
Yeah, I'm going with $150 million. Which even I think that might even be a little high, but you guys have driven my price up.
Oh, to clarify, that was $3.50.
Okay.
Tree fitting.
There's 250 million jujubes.
All right, so the final one here, I don't know if you guys have a prediction.
I do.
This is the tiebreaker. Should there be a tie in our calculations, I want you to predict a plot point that is not in the trailers that will be in the film.
Well, this is a kind of a snarky answer, and I don't know if it counts as a plot point. But here's my answer, and tell me if you need more detail. The first third of the movie, we will be introduced slowly, one by one, to all the characters, and kind of introduced to the mission they're going to undergo. The second third of the movie will be where the characters are all learning how to get along together as they train for the mission that they're about to go on. And then the last part of the movie will be where they all actually do it. And there will be one or two characters who were having troubles the whole time who will come together in the battlefield. Meanwhile, the Joker and Harley Quinn all have their own subplot going on behind the scenes that will carry on to films yet to come.
So let's boil that down to a Joker Harley Quinn subplot.
Okay. Okay.
Because you just told us the whole movie. We don't even need to go watch it.
Okay.
All right, Raphael, I assume you've got something fun cooked up for this.
I assume that at least halfway through the movie, Deadshot will get into some sort of fight, and he'll have to move to Bel Air with his uncle. And from there, the movie will be quite the tangent. Won't be anything that we've seen in the trailers, but it will be a fun, plucky family comedy. And I think that's what's going to earn it that Tree Fitty.
So Deadshot will become the Fresh Prince of Bel Air?
I didn't use those words. You use those words.
Yes, Mitch. Come on now.
Okay. Will become the Fresh Shot of Bel Air. Family comedy. You're predicting a family comedy.
Family friendly. Take the kids.
All right.
It's going to be fun for everybody.
Yeah, by the way, is Will Smith doing the theme song that's going to play at the end of the credits? That's my prediction, is that Will Smith does the theme song that plays in the
I will pay to see the movie just for that. I will pay to see just that. Also, is this movie rated R? Is this an actual rated R movie?
Hold on.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I thought so.
I don't think I've really taken much consideration into the rating.
Our IMDb skills. I'm not sure I see a rating. Well, I'm not sure I would look here.
Okay, I'm seeing PG-13, guys.
All right,
Okay.
PG-13. So that's interesting.
Maybe it is family friendly. I for sure thought it was going to be rated R.
Well, that could be pretty violent, but no blood,
So your
or not as
your prediction's looking pretty good then of the family-friendly comedy at the end. All right, so I'm gonna cheat a little bit. I'm gonna steal my subplot here, my plot point from comic books.
Mm.
One of the Suicide Squad trades that I read bears a strong resemblance to what they're doing. So I'm predicting the Technovirus subplot will be in this movie from the comic books. Because in that plot, well, in the comic books they did more of a Katrina allegory, where like there was this dome stadium full of people who were infected by a technovirus, and the Suicide Squad had to go in there and basically kill everyone. I don't think they're going to do that necessarily, but I think the technovirus, the subplot, will be in this movie.
Doesn't X-Men also have a technovirus, or?
Yeah, everybody's got a technovirus.
It's a very
Iron
generic
Man.
technovirus.
Very
I put
generic.
some on my cornflakes this morning.
Technovirus, good for what ails you, really.
Just plunk them in milk.
All right, so I think that's it. That's the end of our Suicide Squad special. I think that's the end of our special episode of Comics Community. To thank everybody for joining us. Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Raphael. Any last minute things you want to say? Where people can reach you? Anything like that?
Well, just that there's a kitten on the table behind me over here whose name is Thor.
Oh, cute.
He's like all of 4 months old, and he has extra toes. But also, don't forget to tune in. Don't know when this is coming out exactly, but don't forget to tune into the first episode of our second half of our 2016 season, which will be on or around August 15th.
Yay. Raphael?
Also, I am still locked in Phil's basement. Phil, please let me out. I haven't seen the sun in, I think, the past 30 days. If you're
Yeah.
watching, please.
I noticed I've got to adjust my router. You were not coming through a time or two there.
Other than that, everything's good. Check out the podcast. I think I'm on the first episode, so all the more reason to watch it. I will be talking about Ghost Rider a lot.
Nice. All right. This is Mitch. You can find me at ZebuNation.com, Zebu_Nation on Twitter. And I would say that we're signing out, but I don't have the power to sign us out. Only Phil has the power to sign us out. So whenever Phil signs us out and his cat stops being so adorable,
No.
we'll see you later.
3, 2,